Welcome to Patio Ponderings, the podcast from the backyard where we explore the important and obscure in agriculture. From insights into industry trends to reflections on how agricultural roots shape our lives, we're here to spark meaningful conversations as we cover everything from the expected to the obscure. I'm your host, Jim Smith, inviting you to join me as we pull up a chair, take a moment to reflect, and dive into the stories, challenges, and innovations that connect us all to the land. Whether you're a seasoned ag professional, a friend, or simply curious about the roots that shape our lives, this is your space to pause, reflect, and dig a little deeper. So grab your coffee, sit back, and let's get pondering as we enjoy the view, the sounds, and the stories from the backyard. Welcome, everybody, to this episode of the Patio Pondering podcast. Today, we have the great joy of being joined with Dane Emenhiser. Dane is a good friend. He's my seed salesman, and he is the current owner of Emenhiser Crop Solutions in Woodburn. Dane has deep roots in agriculture, growing up on a family farm in eastern Allen County. His passion for farming and agronomy led him to build a thriving career. And eventually he took ownership of a Pioneer dealership that turned into Emenhiser Crop Solutions in 2021. And one of the reasons I think Dane's insights are quite valuable for us is that he took his roots in agriculture, went to Purdue and got an education, and turned that education not only into sales, but took the giant leap to purchase his own business. So before we jump into some specifics, Dane, can you give us just a 30,000-foot overview of where you've been, what your education is, and a little bit about your family?
Yeah, thanks, Jim. Thanks for having me today. It's interesting as we got ready to prepare for this, and I was thinking about all of the different things that led me here, and I had a feeling this question was going to come up, and I just wondered, okay, what all do I say? And like you mentioned, I did grow up in eastern Allen County, one of 10 kids, and small family farm. My dad and his cousin farmed together, and my grandpa grew up right across the section and was farming 160 acres organically, and that was different for the time. It wasn't trendy. I didn't know anybody doing anything organic at the time, and so a lot of summers spent hoeing beans as that transitioned into Roundup Ready beans later, took away a lot of kids' summer jobs. But so yeah, grew up working on the farm and spending time over at my grandpa's. First tractor I drove was a 1938 Model A, flywheel start, and yeah, cut my teeth driving that tractor. Grew up, doing all the things on the farm, helping Dad any way I could. Had a small pumpkin patch. That was one of those things that was kind of forced on us, but in hindsight, definitely taught us a lot of things, a lot of hard work, and kind of cutting our teeth a little bit on the business side of things. We had to do planning and then raise the crop and sell it and all of those things. So I didn't see it that way at the time, but again, in hindsight, working towards building something there.
One of those unintended lessons.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, grew up doing that, went to Woodland, junior, senior for high school, played football through high school, wasn't involved in FFA. You could say I was in 4-H, but wasn't involved. Mm-hmm. Was in it to make a quick buck raising chickens, and that was about the extent of it. Wasn't active in that, and yeah, made it through high school. Worked at the local John Deere store, and really enjoyed that. Got to do an awful lot of fun things there. Again, in hindsight, there were some things that were fun. There were some things that weren't as fun, but it also taught me a lot of things at the time as well. So worked there after school and on Saturdays and making a few bucks for gas money and that kind of stuff. Graduated high school in 2005 and went to Purdue after that. So when I was at Purdue, when I went to Purdue, I was admitted in landscape horticulture and design.
Really?
Yeah. And
check off obscure number one.
So yeah, and it took me about 3 weeks of that to realize that memorizing flowers and shrubs wasn't going to be for me, and realized pretty quickly that I missed the farm. In high school, I didn't really think coming back to the farm was ever anything I wanted to do. I always associated the farm with hoeing beans and doing the things that weren't fun.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I got down to school that I realized that, you know what, hey, I do miss a lot of things about this. So I changed my major and went into farm management, and then also picked up an agronomy associate's degree at the same time.
Okay. And you also picked up your MR period title at Purdue, right?
I did. Yep. When I was down there, I met my wife, Nicole. She was in ag education. So yeah, we hit it off down there, and later got married in the summer of 2010 then. So,
and then did you move back right after you graduated Purdue?
So yeah, after I graduated from Purdue, I came back, and actually that first summer and fall after I graduated, I worked on the farm with my dad and his cousin through harvest. And it was at that time that I kind of realized, hey, there's not going to be a full-time opportunity for me here. The farm was big enough, but we needed different income source, and it just didn't make sense to stay on full time. And it was that summer, fall that I'd met Max DeLaGrange. Didn't know Max from Adam.
Okay.
It was funny because I wasn't at the shop that day, and Max had come by. He knew my dad, but in the 4 years in college, I never met him.
Okay.
He wasn't actively calling on him. And he'd stopped by the farm that day and asked my dad, you know, hey, I hear you got a son that just, you know, graduated from Purdue. Does he have any interest in selling? And Dad said, I don't know. You'll have to talk to him. and that was about it. So Max called me out of the blue one day and introduced himself. He said, hey, you know, would you be interested in getting together, you know, for lunch sometime? As I thought about it, I thought selling was the last thing that I ever really thought I would ever want to do. Didn't interest me at all. I wasn't a people person. I didn't really care to talk to strangers, and I didn't see myself as a salesman. My vision of a salesman was that used car salesman that gives up his morals and ethics to just sell something. And that was my view of a salesman, and that was the last thing that I wanted to be was that used car salesman. So I got together with Max one day, and he kind of said, you know, told me what he was looking for. Pioneer was, you know, encouraging him to bring somebody on board. His agency was growing. Didn't have the time to actively prospect and do those things at the time. And so he was looking for somebody to do that. And that was also when they were getting more into the field planning and field mapping. And that wasn't of his interest either. And so it was, hey, we're going to bring you on to prospect, but then also take care of kind of some of the digital mapping and yield monitors and that kind of stuff that he wasn't as well versed in and didn't care to really learn at his point in his career either. After thinking about it, stewing on it, I thought, you know what, I'll give it a shot. That would have been fall of 2009. I said, hey, I'll come work for you, but it's going to have to be after harvest.
Okay.
And 2009 was a memorable fall.
Oh, yeah.
For a lot of different reasons. It was a wet fall. It was a late fall. Went well into December, but it was December 2009 that I started with.
After you got done harvesting mycotoxin corn.
Yep. And mudding it all out of the field and drying a bunch of 30% corn.
Yep.
So yeah, that was kind of where it started then.
Okay. And then you and Nicole got married when?
We got married in late June of 2010.
Okay.
And it was funny because Max's brothers would come around the farm and the seed dealership quite a bit. And his one brother was known for always kind of giving, you know, playing jokes and that kind of stuff. He said, "You're not going to be able to go on your honeymoon because we're still going to be planting beans." and I said, "There's no way, you know, that's June 26th. There's no way we're still going to be planting beans the end of June." And sure enough, that morning before we got married, and Max came to the wedding was in Columbus, Indiana. Before Max left that morning, he actually had some beans to deliver. I never lived that down because, well, hey, Max had to deliver beans on your wedding day.
Yeah.
So
yeah, Max did you a favor.
Yeah. Yep, you shouldn't have been allowed to go on your honeymoon because we were still planting, and that's part of your job description is help get beans delivered.
Yeah, I could see that brother doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. That was where we started, and yeah, when I started selling, it was a list of prospects. I knew some local farmers, but I mean, in all honesty, for growing up in the farming community, I didn't really know that many people.
Okay.
I always kind of stayed, close to home, and we all kind of stayed, I'll say, in our lanes, and never really, ventured out. So I didn't really know all that many farmers. And,
okay. So just like every planning plan that you and I've made the last 3 or 4 years, our podcast is the same way because our script and those planning plans are getting thrown out the window.
and I probably hijacked them and made things go astray here.
That's all right. So you and Nicole established a family, a small pig herd, and you have 4 kids now, right?
Yep. Yeah, our oldest is 13. Our youngest is just over 1.
You've already hit on what drew you back to the farm and your interesting upbringing on the farm. You mentioned you have 10 siblings or 9 siblings?
9 siblings, yep.
How many of those are actively involved in ag?
Probably 3 or 4 of us to some degree.
Well, your brother Brian sells seed.
Yeah, yep. He's with Simplot.
And then Lee helps
Lee,
your dad, right?
Yeah, Lee helps. Lee's works for Hagerman full time, but then definitely helps, especially during harvest season. My brother Alex works with me in the seed business.
Okay,
and,
so 4 of you.
Yep.
4 of the 10.
Yep.
All right. And the other 6 are like, I don't want to have anything to do with it?
I want to say they're to that degree. They still maintain interest, but definitely I don't think have the desire to do it on a daily or regular basis.
They weren't bit by that stupid bug you and I were.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, we already hit on what inspired you to switch from landscape architecture to farm management. As you've spent time post-graduation, is there anything that you can reach back to that you use regularly?
There's definitely a lot of days that I think back about sitting in Dr. Taylor's egg econ class and his excitement and different things that definitely spur memories. I can't quote any of them off the top of my head, but there's a lot of things that I remember him talking about that I apply on a regular basis, or things in some of the agronomy classes that I look back to and say, oh shoot, yeah, I did need that one day.
Oh, I did need to remember what CEC stood for.
Yeah, or thinking about some of the conversions, or and even chemistry. Mm-hmm. You think about some of those different things that you learn in chemistry that when it's chemistry itself, it's like, when am I ever going to use this? And then when you can actually apply it to something, it's like, oh, well, now it makes sense.
Oh, yeah. And the cation anion is one that jumps out of me. I'll never need that. I'm a swine nutritionist, and now I need it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, yeah, there's some of those things, and, you just never know. And sometimes it hits you in some of the most unexpected times, and you're like, oh, okay, yeah, I didn't need to know that.
It's amazing how those little lessons that you, or in the back of your brain, just pop up and like, I remember that. Yeah. The one thing that Dr. Taylor, that I always remember him doing, he in his suspenders, he always wore those white suspenders, and he'd stand in front of class and give a lesson, and the one that stuck with me was, don't do that. And he was what, 6'3"?
Yeah.
Pushing 300 pounds or more. Yeah. And so when he would do that, and he always had that high-pitched voice that made you pay attention.
Absolutely.
My list of questions are a little bit different because of what we've already talked about. But can you touch on how your career as a seed salesman changed from that day that you stepped on Max's farm in 2010 to right before you purchased it and now that you've purchased it? How is your approach to seed sales, or just, let's hit on seed sales first.
When I first started, it was definitely like you said, I have a different perspective today. Mm-hmm. Before, and I always, even when before it looked like there was going to be the opportunity for me to ever take it over. That was when I started with him. There was never this grand plan that I'm going to come work for him. and I'm going to take it over. It was more so, hey, I'm going to give this a shot and see where it goes. But from the time that I started and even today, my approach is I'm going to make this recommendation as if it was my own farm or my own decision that I was trying to make myself, and not just make a recommendation because that's the best way to cover my product's faults or to cover my behind and make sure that it's not going to be a shortcoming on our end of things. Mm-hmm. And so whether it's picking a product or the placement of a product or making a recommendation to spray fungicide or do this or do that, I always try to put myself in that grower's shoes and say, okay, does this really make sense for that grower to spend this money or to plant this product? Or again, is this something that I feel is in the best interest for the grower, or is this going to make me look the best at the end of the day?
Okay.
So, and like I said, that piece of it hasn't changed. For me, I still hold all of that very true. But it was those things, didn't keep me awake at night. Or are we going to have the products? Well, Max will deal with that.
Okay.
Or where how is the spring going to go? Is it going to be a late spring? Are we going to have a bunch of prevent plant? Those are the kind of things that keep me awake at night and cause stress, just because now it's my name on that banknote saying, all right, hey, you've got this loan due for these buildings and for this bulk site and those kinds of things that especially when you're 22 right out of college, it doesn't hit home the same.
Oh no. Especially with the way that you started as not really seeking out a sales job.
Yeah.
It kind of fell in your lap of, this will keep me home.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm getting married. I need to do something, right?
Yep. And it was, okay, I'll give it a shot. And I mean, I never at that time in the summer, fall of 2009, I never thought that I'd get to where I am today.
Yeah. My 15-year plan is to own a seed business with this huge note.
Yeah.
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 And I'll do it by 2022.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So there's a couple things that hit me with what you discussed. One, you embody and illustrated that sales and ag has a huge relationship component that most people don't understand. Mm-hmm. And you also embody what Kim and I like to talk about, and she and you, I think, are great examples of it. You have become extroverted introverts so that you could do your job.
Absolutely. That piece for sure. I don't like crowd, but I've got to kind of give myself that pep talk every day, especially sales season. Like I said, I don't see myself as a salesman. And so when it comes time to put on that sales hat, I usually have to give myself a pep talk saying, all right, hey, this is what puts the money, this is what makes those payments. And because I enjoy the agronomy, I enjoy the service side of things that much more than I do making the sale. And so, yeah, that time of year is definitely where I've got to put on that introvert extrovert relationship.
Let's dive into that a little bit, because I've been through 5, 6, 7 different sales training over my career. Even took Dr. Downey's class right when it was really starting to take off. We make fun of people as order takers, but just hit me. It seems to me that your building of relationships makes seed purchase season where you're just an order taker. And I mean that in a positive way, because you've got the relationship built up, that you care about your customers, you've got solutions, and you know their farms. For a lot of your customers, I assume that taking orders is just taking an order. It's not having to resell Pioneer. It's not having to resell Lumigen. It's not having to resell you and Alex. It's just, hey, farmer, here's what we did. Here's what I think. Is that the case in a lot of places?
To some degree, yes. And the word order taker is one of those that strikes a chord with me, just because that's not what I want it to be about, is taking an order or that kind of thing. I always want it to make, that's a very big decision that every farmer makes once a year. And like you mentioned, that piece of building that relationship, a lot of them have, I want to say, completely turned that decision process over to us, but they've come to realize that, hey, these products are changing faster than I can keep track of them. It's not 1990 where a corn product stays in the lineup for 10 years and I can learn that number. A lot of guys have turned that over to us, but at the same time, I also put a lot of emphasis in that visit, because that is a very big discussion to have when you look at whether it's the 200 acre guy or the 2,000 acre guy. That's that next crop. That's that next page that we're turning, and how do we make that next year better?
Okay, I agree with you that order taker has a negative connotation. I've used it in the past discussing some salesmen I work with, and it is negative, but I mean it in a positive, because I think it stems, in your case, taking the order is the fruit of the relationship you put in, and it's easy. Yeah. And I embody that. I ask you some questions. Will this work? Will this work? And you've already got the answers in your head because you've thought about it.
Yeah.
So in our relationship, you're just an order taker when it comes to, hey, we need to sign up. Yes, here, I trust you. Throw some things back at you. But I think that is the culmination of the relationship building, which is so key to these agricultural sales that sometimes I think we ignore.
Yeah, there's definitely a big relationship piece that comes into play there, and that building that trust. And there are, a good number of operations that yes, I've gotten to that point with, where it's, all right, how many acres of corn, how many acres of beans are we looking at? And in a lot of those cases, they give me some gutters. Mm-hmm. Hey, that I like to stay between 106 and 110 or whatever, or 2 8s to 3 3s. All right, now interject your knowledge of the products, okay, and help me pick out the products and make sure we get that balance right and those kinds of things. So yes, and to some degrees it is an order taking, but it is that year-round emphasis that we put on things that allows us to just be that order taker, if you will. Mm-hmm. It's not, hey, I show up in November and I get your seed order and I deliver it in March, and then we say, see you again in November. Yeah. There's a lot of other things that happen in that background that build that relationship to get us to that point.
So how has your approach to servicing your customers and your experience, starting from not really thinking you wanted to be into seed sales, let alone a business operator, how does that set what you and Alex do apart from your competitors and the seed suppliers in our area?
So our approach is very hands-on. We try to make sure that we're there with that operation all season long. 75% of the beans we deliver in season to everybody, to their wagon, to their seed tender as they're calling for them. So if you're running all night long, we're keeping beans to you all night long. So we're very service-oriented, service-driven, and that builds that relationship, builds that rapport with that grower that allows us to do things that other guys aren't able to do. We're very centrally located, and so we can be very nimble. And if it's service calls for replant decisions or scouting for leaf diseases or whatever, because we're right here, right in the middle of our customer base, inevitably we're going to be driving past one of your fields, or we'll make it a point to drive past your field and get there just as fast as we can. We're not covering 6 counties, going to be an hour and a half away before we could be on your farm, kind of thing.
Has the product offering from Corteva or your decisions with the way you stock products, does that set you apart from your competition?
I think so. That's one thing that I've always been very thankful for on the Pioneer side of things, is that I don't have to own the inventory. So in years like this year where it looked like we were going to be possibly planting into June, and it was okay. There's rain forecasted. I've got to make this call before that rain happens to make sure. Hey, I think we're going to need some early season corn, so we shipped in a couple loads of 100 to 104 day corn that it turned out that we didn't end up needing.
Okay,
but it wasn't like I had to pay Pioneer for that. And take it in as true inventory. Luckily, again, the way things are set up with Pioneer, that isn't the way it works. So we're very nimble, and we're always having product on the floor, whether it's that extra 10 bags of corn or that extra box of corn or 3 boxes of beans, or if we get late and guys are switching corn acres to bean acres, we've got that flexibility to adjust quickly and rapidly to what everybody needs.
Okay. So if we jump into a prospecting mode, does the bulk bin and the on-site seeding, is that a feature and benefit that sets you apart when you're prospecting?
When we first tell guys about it, I don't think that it hits home until they actually get the opportunity to experience it.
Okay.
So being able to, I can talk about it, but until I tell that prospect, hey, give us 2 hours notice when you're ready for our beans, we'll treat them fresh and we'll put them right in your wagon, wherever your wagon is. And you can say that, but until you deliver on it, that's when it really hits home. One customer that I've got now had been with a competitor for a very long period of time, and came and we started working with him the last couple of years. And he came on board when Plenish grew up or blew up in our area, and
blew up in a good way.
In a good way, yes. And he had said when ADM at New Haven discontinued Plenish for the 2025 growing season, he said, I fully anticipated when Plenish had run its course, I was going to go back to my current supplier. But he said the way you guys deliver seed and keep us going, he said, I couldn't imagine doing it without you now. So it's when they finally get that opportunity to experience, hey, when you call for seed, we're going to have you seed, we're going to get you what you need, and you're not going to feel a glitch in your operation. You're not going to have somebody that is going back to the farm and lifting boxes up over a tender or that kind of thing. It's you call us, tell us when you need the seed, and we're there with our tender, putting it in your tender or in your wagon, and your farm never misses a beat.
So I hadn't thought about this as I was preparing, but you make it easy to be a customer.
That's the goal.
Okay. Well, I can attest to that. I don't want to turn this into me singing your praises because do you find that desire to make it easy to be a customer? Where does that come from? Does it come from the way you're raised? Is it Purdue?
I would say some of it was the way that I was raised, but then Max was a great mentor.
Okay.
Max had always bent over backwards to help one of his customers out, and so those years that I was working with him before I took over the agency definitely built that foundation to hey, that's how the customer needs to be serviced, needs to be treated, and it sounds very cliche, but I mean that golden rule, treat others how you want to be treated, whether it's on the service side of things or on the making that sale and treating, giving everybody the best possible price and discount that I can. Again, that's one of those where, again, Max built that foundation, and I've tried to extend that and make it even better for the grower.
So now that you have the business owner hat on and you're responsible for writing those checks and you have to answer to your CFO.
Yep.
And you work with your brother, how has your attitude towards sales changed, or has it?
Yeah, it's definitely changed. I've always been a very driven person and always want to sell more the next year. But at the same time, it's that foundation of building that long-term relationship with that grower. There's a lot of people that would be just fine with going out and picking up that one guy and losing him the next year. And luckily in this area, there aren't a whole lot of those people, but our goal and our foundation is building that long-term relationship. And so yeah, I mean, we've definitely, the goal is to grow every year.
Mm-hmm.
We've been fortunate to experience quite a bit of growth in these first several years that we've owned the agency. But the core is still the same, do what's right for the grower and build that relationship and build that long-term customer. And we've got the whole gamut of we've got 100% small guys, and we've got large operations that we have a very, very small portion of the pie. But at the same time, it's looking at the big picture, mm-hmm. and building and hoping that at some point we get the opportunity to be 100% with that operation.
Watching you prospect over the years and on the outside looking in as a sales professional myself, you feel a lot of cliches. Just let me in the door and I'll prove myself. Just try me once. And so it's gratifying as a friend to watch what you've developed.
And there's a lot of people that say it, but then don't deliver on it. Mm-hmm. And that's the one thing that I've always either tried to remind myself of or drive home with Alex is whatever we say we're going to do, let's do that and take it a step further. Because there's a lot of empty promises, mm-hmm. in the sales world, in the ag world, in the world as a whole. And if we say we're going to do something, let's do it and take it a step further, do it better than what we told them we were going to do it, or provide, do it faster than what we said we were going to do or whatever, and make sure that we're always a step ahead, and that grower, experiences things even better than what they thought.
I can attest to that. So we've talked a lot about relationships, but it's been about customer and provider relationship. You're in an interesting position because you work with your brother. How does that relationship work, and how do you guys make that relationship work professionally and as a brother?
That's a good question. Luckily, Alex and I are both similar-minded, but also have different strengths. There's ways that Alex complements me in some areas that I'm not as strong in. He's got a great knowledge and background on the chemistry side of things. I would admit he's stronger there than I am, but at the same time, I'm maybe a little bit stronger on the sales side of things, or some of the business type of things, and so that the complementary approach works well, and we're both very level-headed, and neither one of us have a short fuse or a quick mouth, and so being able to just be very level-headed and level-minded, we don't have shouting matches or anything like that, and so we work well together.
So when Alex came on as an intern with Max, did you have in the back of your mind that you might be working with him full time?
So Alex had interned with AgriGold the summer before.
Oh, a glorified sign poster.
Exactly. and he grumbled about what that, he had hoped that experience was going to be something more than pounding signs all summer long. And at that point, I had the vision of taking over the agency, and I knew that building that rapport with the growers and building that foundation with those growers takes time. I didn't know exactly when that transition was going to take place, but I knew Alex had a great set of strengths that he possessed that I thought would work well in the agency. And so Max wasn't real keen on the idea when I proposed it to him, but I was kind of getting at that point where I'd been with him for 6 years at that point, and so the business was growing. I was getting a little overwhelmed. Max was getting comfortable with everything that I was doing, and
because he was doing less,
was doing a little bit less, and so I viewed it as an opportunity to get Alex into the agency and take a little bit of little bit of the work off of my plate, but also kind of test the waters to see if that was something that we both, hey, can I work with him on a daily basis? There's 6 years between Alex and I, so hadn't always worked with him side by side, and so it worked good to see how that transition might take place. And then like I said, at the same time had that vision that, okay, Max isn't going to do this forever, and I want somebody that is going to be able to come in, and it's not going to be, who's this new guy, and can we trust him? Can we work with him? And kind of build out that future plan and that transition, so that if or when that transition took place, it was seamless for us and the growers both.
That's farsighted of you to think about the time it takes to develop that relationship. And just because you go out and prospect doesn't mean, regardless of what Pioneer might want, it's not going to take you 3 months. Hey, we got a new product, you can go sell a bunch of it.
It was, and that was, I mean, I've always tried to look ahead and think about what the next step is and what the future might hold, and be a step ahead, because anytime we're reactive instead of proactive, there's going to be lag time there, and I want to be a step ahead of our growers and be bringing that next option to the table before they're asking for it.
So one of the challenges that I see, having an idea of the range of customers you have, you've implemented technology in your business. Now we sign everything on an iPad. You pull seed maps, as planted maps, harvest maps. I'm sure you go from the technophiles that have the latest and greatest to, I can name some of them that I'm sure are lucky to set their combine, let alone have a yield monitor. How do you span that huge range of technology adaptation with your customers, and how do you use technology across your customers?
So I mean, like you said, Jim, we've got guys. I mean, we've got Amish customers that are still planting with a horse and a 4-row planter, to guys that we're seeing as planted maps and as applied maps show up on our phone, minutes after they pull out of a field, and it's just being able to be relatable. I mean, we all know that not every operation is going to be in that new 8RX tractor, and not every operation is going to be pulling that planter with a horse, and so being able to just relate to those growers and figure out what where they're at and how we can best service them for each. I mean, we try to very, very individualize each operation.
Okay.
And it's not a one size fits all approach. And so, I mean, doing things like the planning plans, there's a lot of guys that we spend this January, February time with, going through field by field, placing products. Some guys follow it like it's the Bible. Mm-hmm. Other guys, it's, hey, this is in the planner. We got rained out here. We're driving 10 miles south. And
hey, easy. I might resemble that comment.
To which degree?
The planner's full. Let's go.
But at the same time, as we're picking and placing products, we're doing, we're listing option A, option B, option C, and so, and if we've got 4 products and we've only got C up through C listed, those guys know, hey, this one is just an absolute no-go, on this farm, and I do need to take the time to clean out the planter or whatever. So again, trying to individualize the services and the offerings to each individual person. Does that? I don't know.
Yeah,
Did that answer
perfect.
the question?
Yeah, because you got some people that say, "Here's your seed, go plant it," and you got the others where this is going to go on farm A, and here's the prescription. It's going to be planted at 33.5.
Yeah.
They got electric clutches, so you know that even on the curves, it's going to be 33.5. Then you got the others that fall in the middle that will find kind of. So I think being young and having a younger cohort with Alex helping you gives you the mental flexibility to handle that.
Yeah, and I mean, and we grew up. I'm thankful that I grew up in the era that I did. That I was able to, to go from the days of hoeing beans to to seeing some of the first yield monitors to being on that leading edge of writing scripts, and so I've been able to be a part of the industry across a lot of changes. And so being able to be there through all of those changes allows me and Alex both to continue to build our portfolio, I guess, if you will, of the different things that we know as the industry changes, and not just being dumped in 2017 and say, well, I only know how to drive a tractor with auto steer, and everything has variable rate drives on a planter, and every combine has a yield monitor, and all of those things. Growing up running a 4400 and actually having to adjust the combine and some of those things, or running pulling a tractor and a cultivator.
Yeah.
Those types of things build that foundation so that, again, regardless of that customer. And we have the opportunity to run modern equipment as well. So we've got that foundation across the whole array of experience, customer options there.
Well, that we get back to what we talked about before of how our ag roots have helped us get where we are. I like your illustration of how you've lived an interesting transition, because you remember before Roundup, and you remember seeing those fields like, oh my gosh, look what Roundup can do. And now we talk about Roundup as just a weed killer or a grass killer.
Yeah, good surfactant.
That is neat hearing your experience. What might be one of those surprising aspects of seed sales and maybe servicing seed customers that the typical person outside of your customer base might not understand or realize?
I would say every day is a different challenge.
Okay.
Whether it's weather or disease or equipment, whether it's my equipment or the grower's equipment, every day presents a different challenge, and being able to adapt rapidly can make or break how you handle those different conditions or environments, and that you got to be willing to make decisions rapidly. There's times where you've got that flexibility of being able to take your time making decisions, and then there's other times where I got to make a decision now, and I've got to live with the decision that I make, whether it's the recommendation that I make to a grower or how we do things, delivering seed, or as we maneuver through the spring, making that call on, okay, do we ship in a whole bunch of early season corn that we may or may not need? Big decisions that, had I made the decision back this spring not to ship in a bunch of early season corn, and we get that rain event, and now all of a sudden we are planting in June and everybody wants early season corn, and I'm saying, hey, sorry, we don't have, you're going to have to plant what you have. Those are some of those decisions that again, sometimes it's, you got to make it, and you got to make it now, and hope and pray that you made that right one.
Just because the seed bag's there doesn't mean that the decision's done, right?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think back to my aunts and uncles and people that grew up on the farm don't realize that there's so much more that can go into that. Helping your customers zig when they need to zig and zag when they need to zag.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I have been in those situations. Like, And we have to make those decisions quick, and
Yeah.
you and Alex adapting to be able to make those decisions. And I think that if we go back to the services that set you apart, you've got some options that some of your competition doesn't, because they delivered seed in February, and that's the seed you get.
Yeah. I mean, having the bulk bins, and then just again the proximity that we've got to the growers, and being nimble gives us an awful lot of flexibility, and being able to again make and even on seed treatment. I mean, there's situations where, in a lot of cases, if the production plan is treating the soybeans, in some cases you're going to say, hey, I'm going to plant early. I want my beans treated with everything, including Levo, and you may get into the situation where you're planting late, and you say, boy, beans have dropped, $1 or $2 in price. Now we're planting in late May, early June. The need for sudden death, protection as a seed treatment doesn't look like a good investment. Well, too bad you made that decision in November, and those beans are in your shed, where we've got the flexibility of treating those soybeans as you need them, and adjusting that recipe to what we need at that time, and what is either most economical or most needed given the current environment that we're facing.
Yeah, I like the flexibility that you have to offer. I think that puts you in a position that you and Alex can really go on a prospect farm, and lay out a list of features and benefits that set you apart.
Yeah. Yep.
So one other thing that you and I share is we're not part of FFA.
Correct.
And I think there's an impression by people outside of agriculture that think that you have to be an FFA to understand production agriculture. And I think you and I blow that myth out of the water.
Yeah, and I mean, and I'll be honest, in hindsight, I wish that I probably took advantage of the opportunity of FFA in high school. At the time, I didn't see myself coming back to the farm, or even really being involved in agriculture after high school. So, well, why do this? It sounds more like work than it does like fun. Whether it was playing sports or working or hanging out with friends, I didn't see how FFA fit into my future, and again, very very short-sighted.
Yep.
As most high schoolers are, you're thinking about what what you're going to do that night or over the weekend, or what sports team what high school you play next in football or basketball or whatever, and so, but at the same time, if you use those experiences that you've got growing up on a farm, I mean, looking back, when we were hoeing those bean fields, we were constantly being asked, hey, what weed is this? And we were learning, I had a better understanding of a lot of weed ID in elementary school and early high school than a lot of kids did, after they went through 4 years of college. Just again, because of that time. Well, how do you pass time in a bean field when you're pulling weeds? Well, you identify them.
That's right. Yay. Got another big weed.
Yeah. And in some cases you got to know them better than what you wanted to, because that's all you saw. But yeah, I mean, that's, the FFA side of things, you can build off of the foundation that you have, and still use it, and you don't have to be involved in something like FFA.
So you were one of 10, and 4 are in production agriculture. As you look at your siblings, how do you think walking beans, growing up around your grandfather and your dad, and watching your dad's operation, how do you think those experiences shaped their lives beyond just the raw experiences?
Looking back, I mean, again, at the time, none of that ever looks, is fun or sounds like fun, but the teaching aspect that my dad and my grandpa allowed it to be, and instilling that hard work ethic and those things, again, at the time, getting up and walking through wet beans in the morning didn't sound like a whole lot of fun.
It wasn't.
And it wasn't. And it by no means was it. But at the same time, taking that approach into life every day, and whether it was seeing them do it. I mean, my dad's 72 years old and will still go out and walk bean fields to pull water hemp or mare's tail or whatever it may be, and seeing them live that out themselves built that same sense of ambition and pride in me, and I think in all my siblings as well. Is you've got to do something. I mean, we've got the option to get up every morning, and we can either sit on our butt, or we can get up and do something and make something of the day. And every day they were both getting up and making that day the best they could make it, and building something.
Okay.
And so that's
Get up and get something done. I think that's great advice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you embodied it, having to get up and walk those beans. I didn't have to walk them near as much as you did, but that was never fun.
No.
How do you share your passion for ag with either your family, the community, friends?
I mean, right now we've got 4 kids, so I mean, trying to involve our kids, having them ride along in the spring when we're making seed deliveries, or this spring I had the pleasure of taking my 4-year-old and less than 1-year-old out on a service call one Saturday morning to look at some beans, keeping them involved in things. And like we talked about before, my oldest, is big into showing pigs. He's, getting to experience that livestock side of things, even though there's a fair amount of separation between show world and production world. He's still getting that firsthand experience with livestock. I didn't really have any livestock growing up, so he's getting a lot of experiences there, and being able to build relationships with people through the show world side of things, as well. So, and also just being able to. So, I mean, when I think about the community, being able to have our field days or our post-harvest dinner that we have growers to, when we put in the time and effort into that those people can see, hey, we're fully invested in this. We're here to stay. We're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I think that builds that excitement around agriculture and what we do.
I think that the phrase "take your kid to work" means something completely different to me and you and Alex and your customers than it does to our. I think about my my youngest son's friends that he spends time with. His dad's a lawyer. He can't take his 15-year-old to a deposition and say, "Hey, here's my 15-year-old. He's just along." Whereas you took your 2 youngest on my sons have ridden in the combine. We get experiences to share with our children being in ag because we're so hands-on and it's so close that I think sets our kids apart.
Yep.
That their friends and frankly some of our family don't get because of just the nature of other jobs.
Yeah. Agriculture is definitely something we're very fortunate to be in because, like you said, not everybody gets that opportunity to live, eat, sleep what they do. We're very, very fortunate there.
Yeah, we are. So let's get into the 5 questions, and you're the second person to get them, and you did. I might have given you a cheat sheet beforehand. So let's jump into the 5 questions, and we'll end up our podcast today. So what is one lesson that ag has taught you that you carry with you every day?
Every day is different. And as soon as you think you know what you're going to do any given day, Mother Nature or something derails that plan. And so being nimble, being willing to adjust is a part of agriculture. And whether it's a rain event or, a service call from my standpoint, something you didn't have planned that becomes urgent all of a sudden can really, you've got to be nimble. You got to be willing to adjust, or it'll just eat you alive.
Yeah, be nimble. I like that. Yep, because every business has their daily challenges, and they have monkey wrenches. But it seems like we've got more than the rest.
There's a few more unpredictables, I think, in what we do than a lot of other industries.
Yeah. If you could spend an afternoon with any agricultural figure from history, who would it be and why?
I would say, and this one, hits close to home, just in the line of work that I'm in. But when I thought about that question, Henry Wallace came to mind, the founder of Pioneer. When you look back to nearly 100 years ago, he had the foresight to think about hybridizing corn. That was, at the time, everybody was planting open pollinated corn. They were sorting off the biggest years as the ones to plant the next year. Mm-hmm. And you take that and you say, all right, hey, we're going to cross this male and this female, and we're going to make a hybrid. And the vision that he had to do those things, that people probably thought he was crazy at the time, and just getting inside of his head for an afternoon, I think would be really intriguing.
Yeah, and ask him, what did the neighbors think when you bred this scrawny ear with this scrawny ear?
And you produced a scrawny ear still. Mm-hmm. And you're going to tell me that that's going to make a bigger, better ear. That was, he probably looked like an absolute lunatic.
Yeah, send him to the loony bin. That's a good one. What's one obscure or quirky thing in agriculture you think more people should know?
There is an awful lot of opportunities, regardless of where you start in agriculture. The door is completely wide open. You think about so many other career paths, and you go to school to be an engineer, and you're stuck in that engineer mindset or world per se. But you go to school for to Purdue and study agriculture. That door just gets completely blown wide open, and you've got a ton of opportunities. You look at myself, a farm management degree in agronomy, and here I am selling. Or, in Alex's case, he went to Purdue for ag systems management, and again, ended up in the sales world. Just because you start somewhere doesn't mean that it dictates where you finish, or where you end up, or the different opportunities and possibilities that are open. Just because agriculture is so diverse, you could end up anywhere. Again, in the case of my wife, she went to school to be an ag teacher, and is an ag lender for Farm Credit now. So again, where we start doesn't dictate where we finish.
Well, there's so much more to ag than driving a tractor and feeding a pig.
Absolutely.
What's your favorite agricultural tool, product, or innovation?
I think the one that is going to have an absolute major impact, and it's hard to see it right now, but as we continue to build autonomy into farming, it's gonna be a game changer. There's gonna be so many things that it opens up that we can't even imagine yet, and it's hard to picture it because here in Northeast Indiana we've got those Amish fields that are surrounded by fences and are 5 acres. Okay, how does it work there? Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But then you look at some of these other situations where we've got 320 acre farms, and you can set that tractor and that tillage tool loose and have it work that field overnight while you're sleeping or whatever. And so I think autonomy is gonna be a big game changer in the next 5 to 10 years even.
I think we could expand that into AI. And I think that we as lay people, without an understanding, put AI in AI is, and it is not is.
Yeah.
And the example you brought up with autonomy on a 320 acre field, where we used to live in Iowa, I think the closest field to us was like a 9-something because they tore out some fence rows. What we think about of autonomy of that tractor or the driverless tractor. You know, kind of looks like a bot from Star Wars or something. But what if we have the autonomy to take a garden tractor sized tillage tool and put that in that 5-acre Amish field? I mean, we don't know what autonomy, ag, or artificial intelligence will be. Yeah. So I think that's a great one.
Yeah. And I mean, and the hard part, especially when they rolled out the autonomous tractors and they didn't have cabs, that seemed like it was so not third world, but it didn't fit the mold. And now as you see, what some of this autonomy stuff looks like, where it's your regular cab tractor with a set of cameras all around it, then it starts to hit home that, okay, this is real. Yeah. And even some of the newer combines now are adjusting harvest speed based on what the cameras are seeing out in front of them. And there again, all of the added capabilities, the added efficiencies that come along with those types of things again. And I mean, you hit the nail on the head. It doesn't always just have to be the biggest equipment. It'll probably create the scalability and the affordability on the smaller side of things is going to be a bigger challenge, but at the same time create a ton of options there too, with the smaller equipment too.
So the last question, what is one small act or change you think could make the biggest difference in agriculture's future?
I'm going to use the same kind of answer that we just talked about. I mean, I think you look at AI, I mean, it's so big, and like you said, we've only experienced just the tip of the iceberg. I think AI is something big that's going to be very huge in agriculture, that we don't even know how it's going to impact us yet. I think it's whether it's the things that I do on the seed sales side of things, or what we use in agronomy or in automation or GPS or whatever. There's going to be a lot of things coming there that we can't even envision with it right now.
Well, Dane, we've covered a lot, and we've covered a lot less than I wanted to cover because my script is out the door because we had such a great conversation. Thanks for coming and spending time with us. Not on the patio because it's starting to snow. We'll do that another time.
Sounds good.
I really appreciate getting to know you more. I've known you've been my seed salesman since you started. So we've seen good crops, bad crops, mycotoxins, floods, replants. I think we've seen about everything we could see except the automation and prescriptions. So I appreciate you sharing time with us. I look forward to more seasons with you.
Absolutely.
And if people want to learn more about Emenhiser Crop Solutions, where could they get that?
So yeah, I'd like to thank you, Jim, for having me on too. And so yeah, I mean, if people want to learn more about us, they can either visit our Facebook page at Emenhiser Crop Solutions, or we've got a website, emenhisercropsolutions.com, and we've got the Facebook page kind of gives a little more of what we do on a day-to-day and some of those things. The website has a lot of our agronomy newsletters and those types of things that we put out listed on there. So depending on what you're looking for, feel free to check out both of them.
Great. Well, thanks again, Dane. And thank you, listeners, for enjoying another episode of Patio Pondering Podcast. We look forward to sharing more of the expected and obscure from agriculture as we have more guests join us on the patio. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Patio Pondering. We hope you enjoyed exploring both the expected and obscure corners of agriculture with us. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite platform. We'd love to hear your thoughts and suggestions. Connect with us anytime at jim@patiopondering.com. Until next time, keep growing, exploring, and cultivating.